Welcome back to my channel. Today we have an exciting one. I'm going to be talking about affordable cashmere sweaters. Are they actually worth the hype? I will be reviewing some of the most popular options available in the market to find out. I will be going through how soft they feel, how prone they are to peeling, construction and overall wear and tear to help you figure out if they're actually worth your money. And I want to make it clear that these are not new pieces that I recently picked up from store. All of these pieces have been worn and washed multiple times, so I can really give you a well-rounded opinion on their overall quality and durability. But before we get into the review, let's first cover the basics. So what exactly makes high-quality cashmere? Well, there are a few factors that you can consider when evaluating if a piece of cashmere is actually good quality. The first one is fiber length. Good quality cashmere is made from long fibers, somewhere between 35 and 55 millimeters long. And these longer fibers create smoother, more durable yarn that's less likely to peel. So you will often find that affordable cashmere is made from shorter fibers. So even though it can feel soft, you will probably encounter peeling after just a few wears. Now, even high quality cashmere will peel eventually, but the difference is in how soon and how badly it happens. If, for example, a sweater starts peeling after just 1 or 2 wears, then that might not be a good sign. Or if you are in store and see a sweater that already has signs of peeling, then that's definitely one to avoid. Next, we have fiber diameter or thickness. The lower the fiber diameter, the softer the yarn will be. And the best cashmere fibers have a diameter between 14 to 16 microns, which makes it really soft to the touch. However, cashmere shouldn't feel extremely soft either, because this can actually be a red flag. Because sometimes manufacturers overtreat the fibers to make them feel extremely soft to the touch, but that can actually damage the fibers and compromise the overall durability of the garment. There are also grades of cashmere. You have grade A, grade B, and grade C. However, these grades aren't standardized. That's why it's always important to check out the actual measurements if the manufacturer provides them. Next, we have ply, which refers to the number of yarn strands twisted together to make a single thread. Now, ply doesn't necessarily indicate fiber quality, but it does influence how insulating and durable a garment will be. A higher ply equals a thicker and warmer sweater. So, for example, a 10-ply sweater will be thicker, warmer, and more longer lasting than a 2-ply one. And also, the higher the ply, the more yarn is required to knit the sweater. That's why higher ply pieces are more expensive. So to sum up, the best cashmere has long and fine fibers. It should feel soft but not extremely soft. It shouldn't peel prematurely, and a higher ply count usually means a thicker, more durable garment. So now that we have the basics covered, let's get into the actual reviews. Let's begin with the most affordable option from Quince. I have their lightweight Mongolian cashmere turtleneck sweater, which retails for $79.90 US. This is a lightweight sweater and it has a ribbed detailing on the cuffs, hem, and neckline. According to their website, this sweater is made from 100% grade A Mongolian cashmere, but as I mentioned before, grades aren't standardized, so we need to look into the actual measurements. And Quince does provide some information. They mention fibers of 15.8 to 16.2 microns in diameter, so it's on the thinner side, and 34 to 36 millimeters in length. However, they don't clarify if these numbers are average, minimums, or maximums. So while they provide some information, it's still a bit vague. They also mention that this sweater is 12 gauge, which refers to the number of stitches per inch. So this tells us about the density, but not about the quality of the fibers. Now, moving on to my actual experience with this sweater. Construction-wise, I think this could be better. The stitching on the outside, it's a bit crooked in parts, and the seams on the inside aren't as neat on some parts, but it's kind of what you expect for the price point. This is also a bit see-through, so if I wear a white t-shirt underneath, it will show. That's why I normally just wear it with a nude bra on my bare skin. This sweater is super soft. It's probably the softest of the bunch, but like I mentioned before, this can actually be a red flag. And it makes me think that it has been treated in some way to feel softer, especially because of how prone this sweater is to peeling. I've owned this sweater since 2021 and I clearly remember that it started peeling after just a few wears. Now I've worn it and washed it multiple times, and I regularly need to use a fabric shaver or a cashmere comb to remove the peeling and keep it looking nice. Another thing that I don't like is that this sweater creases a lot, which is not a good sign for cashmere. So when I fold it, for example, the fold marks really stick. They just don't fall off when you wear it like they normally do with other sweaters. And I sometimes had to iron it to remove the fold marks, which I'm not supposed to do according to the care label. I think we can agree that the peeling and the creasing are a sign that the quality might not be the highest. However, I wouldn't say that this piece is terrible either, especially considering the price. Next up is the Uniqlo Cashmere crewneck, which retails for $100 but you can often find this on sale. And unlike Quince, Uniqlo gives almost no information about the cashmere they're using. They only mention that this sweater is made from 100% cashmere, but there is no mention of the origin, fiber length, or diameter. And right off the bat, I can tell you this is the scratchiest sweater of the bunch. I felt irritation as soon as I tried it on, especially around my arms. So I cannot wear this on my bare skin. Now it does get a bit softer with wear, but it's still scratchy if I compare it to the other ones. Construction-wise, I would say that this is pretty good for the price. It has a ribbed detailing at the neckline, cuffs, and hem, and it's very well done. The stitching is mostly straight and the inside seams are neat as well. This is also a lightweight piece, but if I compare it to the Quince one, this feels slightly thicker. This is actually the newest sweater in my collection. I've had it for a couple of months now, but I've been wearing it constantly to make this review. So far, I've worn it more than 10 times and I've also washed it, and so far it has been holding up great. And actually, there's barely any signs of peeling, which is impressive, especially considering that almost all of the other sweaters started peeling after just a few wears. And I did read somewhere on Uniqlo's website that they treat their cashmere to make it more peel resistant, and it seems to be working. Obviously, the biggest downside with this sweater is the scratchiness, but if you don't have sensitive skin or if you plan to wear this with a long sleeve t-shirt underneath, then I think it's a good compromise for the price. Moving on, we have one that's a bit more expensive, and it's the pure cashmere turtleneck sweater from Lilysilk, which retails for $144. This is also a lightweight sweater, and just like the other ones, it has a ribbed detailing on the cuffs, hem, and neckline. On their website, Lilysilk mentions that this sweater is made from 100% premium Mongolian cashmere using A-grade fibers. But like I mentioned before, grades aren't standardized, so we need to look into the actual measurements. And Lilysilk does provide some information about this. They list fibers of 34 millimeters in length and 15.5 microns in diameter, which on paper sounds pretty good, but like Quince, they don't mention if these numbers are average, minimums, or maximums, so while they provide some information, it's still a bit vague. Now, moving on to my actual experience with this sweater, construction-wise, I expected a bit more from the price, to be honest. The outside stitching is neat and mostly straight, and it does have those fully fashion marks like the Quince sweater. However, out of all of the sweaters that I'm reviewing, this one probably has the messiest inside seams, which is a bit disappointing considering this is more expensive. The fabric itself is very soft. It's actually very similar to the Quince one, so I can wear it on my bare skin. However, one thing that really stands out is how fluffy this sweater is. And I've heard some people mention that this fluffiness can be an indicator of shorter fibers being used. But I've also heard other people mention that sometimes brands do this on purpose to give it like a nice hand feel. However, I'm not a fan of this fluffiness because this combined with the peeling makes the sweater look kind of messy. And peeling has definitely been an issue with this one. I clearly remember that it started peeling after just a few wears, just like the Quince one. And now I've owned it for more than 3 years, and I do need to regularly depeel it with a fabric shaver or cashmere comb to keep it looking presentable. Overall, I'm not a fan of the fluffiness, and the peeling is definitely a letdown, and combined with the messy inside seams, it just doesn't feel as well made as I expected for the price, especially considering that there are more affordable options that have a better construction. Finally, we have the classic crew in cashmere from Everlane. This is the most expensive sweater from this lineup. It retails for $198 US, and it's also one of the oldest in my collection. I bought it back in 2021, and since then Everlane has changed the design slightly. The version I have is 100% cashmere for the body, and the cuffs and neckline are a cashmere, nylon, and elastane blend. The current version has a slightly different composition, and it's also made from 50% recycled cashmere. Everlane doesn't provide much information about the cashmere they're using. They mentioned that it's a blend of GRS certified recycled cashmere and Good Cashmere Standard certified cashmere, which is great, but there is no information about the actual quality of the fibers. Now, when it comes to my actual experience with this sweater, in terms of construction, I would say it's pretty good. The outside stitching is straight and the inside seams are mostly neat. It also has the fully fashion marks like most of these sweaters. The only thing I'm not a fan of is the neckline. It does feel a bit flimsy for my liking. I tend to prefer thicker necklines because they tend to hold up better, but so far this hasn't stretched out or anything, so it's holding up better than what I expected. In terms of softness, I would say that this is quite soft. It's definitely not scratchy like the Uniqlo one, but it's not as soft as the Quince or Lilysilk sweaters. However, I suspect that those have been treated. So I can actually wear this on my bare skin, and if I'm being honest, I only feel the slightest irritation around the cuffs, but I think this is because they are pretty tight. I've had this sweater since 2021, and overall it has been holding up great. It did shrink a bit the first time I washed it, but after that it was fine. And it has developed some peeling, especially in high friction areas, but nothing comparable to the Quince or Lilysilk sweaters. If I had to pick a favorite, I would probably go for the Everlane one because it feels like the most balanced to me. It is soft, but not extremely soft, and it has developed some peeling over the years, but nothing concerning. My only hesitation would be that the current version is not the same as the one I had because they have changed the composition slightly. So it's difficult to say if you would have the same experience as I did. The second place would go to the Uniqlo one because it's extremely peel resistant and the construction is also pretty good for the price. The only downside, of course, is the scratchiness, but if you don't have sensitive skin or if you plan to wear this with a long sleeve t-shirt underneath, I think it's a good compromise for the price. Now, my least favorites definitely are the Quince and Lilysilk ones, especially the Lilysilk considering it's more expensive. And this really surprised me because these were actually the brands that provided the most information about their cashmere and claimed to be using higher quality fibers. But ironically, these were the ones that peeled the most in real life and didn't seem to have the greatest quality. Plus, the excessive peeling combined with this extreme softness does make me think that these sweaters have been treated to feel softer and that has damaged the fibers and in turn compromised the durability of the garments. But again, these are just my assumptions based on my own experience. Overall, I don't believe any of these are terrible purchases. In fact, I think that they are way better than buying a polyester or acrylic sweater. But just be aware that affordable cashmere does come with some trade-offs, so don't get too caught up by the marketing claims. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions about any of these pieces, just drop them in the comments down below. Consider subscribing to my channel if you like this kind of content, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye!